All right, so that is what some of the experts are saying about what may have happened as this plane went down. And joining us on the broadcast, we've got retired Air Vice Marshal Sunil Nanotkar, who's a former Assistant Chief of Air Staff, and he's also an aviation expert. So thank you very much indeed for joining us here on WION. Now, we've all looked at this very tragic 32 seconds from the time the plane took off from the runway and then it came crashing down. In your assessment, what do you think has gone wrong?
Yeah, first of all, absolute tragedy in a aviation field of aviation to begin with, and I think condolences to all the family members of the deceased. There are no survivors as we speak. That is what I have heard, and that's real tragic for a country like ours. Now, to begin with, I'll tell you that I am not the expert on Dreamliner. I have never flown this aircraft, but yeah, I've been in the field of aviation for long enough to just express myself in terms of right now we are at a stage of speculations, and the facts that are available to us, a couple of them. That is, the aircraft was, Delhi, Ahmedabad. It had flown that route earlier.
Correct.
And from Ahmedabad, it was going to London. And the takeoff roll was normal. There was no abnormality on the takeoff roll. And after rotation, when the pilot has given a call of a Mayday, he has not specified anything in further than giving a call of Mayday. However, there are indicators that the aircraft lift is not adequate, is what has come on record. And that is seen in the visual photographs also, that the aircraft in its takeoff configuration is supposed to produce adequate lift when the engines are running well. And it is supposed to have a certain climb path which is maintained after takeoff. This particular aircraft is not maintaining that flight path because of loss of thrust as expressed by the pilot. And therefore, we see the aircraft sinking down towards the ground. Now, the video is not absolutely clear, but the rear edge of the wing indicates that the flaps are not in a position as we are used to seeing during the takeoff of a aircraft. But I won't say for sure whether the flaps were into takeoff position or not, because the video is not absolutely clear.
Right.
That is one of the reasons why the aircraft wings will not produce adequate lift for the aircraft to go away. But however, as the second aspect is the undercarriage is still down. So therefore, if there is a loss of engine or loss of both the engines, then the aircraft certainly will not be able to sustain the flight, and we see it sinking down towards the ground. And that is what the pilot has appreciated and given a call to that effect.
I think you've raised some very important points that you've put out there, Air Vice Marshal. But, when we look at this video that we've now got on our screens, the plane takes off as expected. It reaches an altitude which at this moment, is being disputed. There are some reports that it went up to just 400 feet. Some others say that it went up to about 600 feet. Some others say it reached a maximum altitude of 825 feet. In your assessment, once it had reached that altitude, you say that probably the wings did not open in the manner. Are you suggesting that this could have been some kind of a mechanical failure rather than a failure of the engine?
No, I don't make any, at this stage, I won't like to make any such statements, because the inputs available are very sketchy at this point. See, when you see the aircraft taking off, it is taken off normally. At this stage, the aircraft seems to be climbing away from the ground as it would do. And at this stage, I would expect the pilot to retract the undercarriage, under normal circumstances. This is the point it has started sinking.
Correct.
And therefore, this Mayday call would have come at this stage. There seem to be no birds around as seen, or it's not even called out by the pilot. And see, all the way from the maximum altitude that or maximum height, I would say, that the aircraft has achieved, in terms of whether it is 650 feet or 820 feet, it is immaterial. But at that point in time, the aircraft has suddenly started sinking, and apparently the pilot has had no control over this aircraft at this point onwards in terms of its takeoff path that it is supposed to maintain, or the lift the aircraft is supposed to produce. So there are a couple of things that may, happen in such a condition. First and foremost, overloading of aircraft. Looking at the passenger list and the number of passengers for Dreamliner, that doesn't seem to be the correct, assessment at this stage. The second could be the incorrect rotation by the pilot, but the pilot was quite experienced, 8,000 plus hours of flying. So day in and day out, he's flying this machine. And the aircraft indicates that the liftoff has been absolutely like a normal liftoff as you see it on the video. So there could be some problems with the controls, which is one of the possibilities. Both engines have been, starved of fuel and flamed out. Therefore, the flight cannot be sustained under any circumstances, and the aircraft starts to glide down. And the height that the aircraft has achieved is grossly inadequate for the pilot to take any recovery action.
Right. Now, Air Vice Marshal, flying is considered the safest mode of transportation, but for people who've been watching these images, this will make them rethink about safety in flying. This will also perhaps go down as the worst aviation tragedy in India's history. In your assessment, what sort of soul searching should India now do, especially the aviation industry, to ensure that incidents like this don't happen? Because we still don't know what has actually resulted in this tragedy. There will be an investigation which will establish the facts. But how should now India react and respond to this?
Yeah, actually, there are a couple of things that, if you see, the aviation industry in India is growing at a very, very fast pace. And our regulatory authorities are able to cope up with this growth in aviation industry is first thing that we need to do. The way we are expanding in this sector, there should be everything related to the safety aspect put in place. I'm not saying that it is not in place, but I'm not very sure about everything being put in place before we take on this kind of rapid growth in our country. So that is one aspect that probably will come out when we do a little bit of, first of all, the investigation in this accident, because there is going to be the manufacturer of the Boeing company involved in this accident. There are going to be aviation experts who are going to look into each and every aspect of this accident and come out with a lot of inputs related to all these aspects of safety, the operating conditions, the operating parameters, thereafter the condition of the various departments that are involved in the aviation industry, including the meteorology, the ground support. Everything will be looked at during this accident, and whatever the pointers are, I think our regulatory authorities need to take them absolutely seriously, which I'm sure they will, because that is the only way that we can grow at the rate which we intend to grow. And safety has no compromise as far as aviation is concerned. And that is what needs to be, prime concern about anybody related to this field of aviation, whether it is civil or otherwise.
Indeed, that's very well put. Thank you very much indeed, Air Vice Marshal Nanotkar, for joining us and getting us that perspective there.
Thank you.